Hi all, I'm Waldemar. Welcome to chessadelic.com. We're going to have a look at a game between Cheparinov and Ivanchuk, which was played in the 10th round of the M-Tel Masters Chess Tournament, Sofia, Bulgaria 2008. Both players have reached a typical Sicilian middle game position, and it is white to move. He played rook g3, with the idea to attack on the king side by means of rook h3, queen h4, and then just taking on h7 and mating. However, I think that this move was probably not his best, and that it was better for white to play a2, a3. In playing a2, a3, he defends his queen side from a possible b5, b4 advance, which would attack white's knight on c3, and also open up the c file for black's attack against the c2 pawn. But anyway, Cheparinov chose to play rook g3. And now Ivanchuk seizes his chance. He plays b4. Now knight a4 really is the only move. And this keeps an eye on the b6 square. So this explains why Ivanchuk now overprotects that square by means of bishop d8. Now that square is protected 3 times. And Cheparinov plays knight c1. He wants to prepare b2, b3 to protect his knight on a4, which could be subject to attack by the bishop on c6. And after he has played b2, b3, he might even want to retreat the knight back to b2 and then maybe have it jump on to a square like c4 or d3. Okay, so knight c1 was played, but Ivanchuk now played bishop c6, and white is actually a little late now with his b3. He has to play this move in order to protect his knight, but now Ivanchuk takes on a4, and in doing so he ruins white's queenside pawn structure. White now has terrible weak pawns on a4, a2 and c2, and also the c file is open for attack. And the black knights also have a very nice route into white's queenside. One of the knights can go to a4 via b6, and the other knight can jump to c4, etc, etc. And yeah, white does not really have any counterplay to match this. So in this position, black has a serious advantage. But now Ivanchuk starts to playing less accurately. He could have played something like knight c4, just jumping into this square which has become available after the capture b3 takes a4. Now, since this is a very dangerous knight hovering over white's king position, white would have to exchange that knight. But after queen takes c4, I think black has a very comfortable edge. However, after b takes a4, Ivanchuk chose to play knight c6. And in doing so, he blocks the c file. And also has no longer the opportunity to jump to c4, of course. Okay, he attacks the bishop on d4, and Cheparinov wants to keep it, but he can simply play bishop e3. And now another strange move followed. Ivanchuk now played the mysterious queen b8. And the idea of this move is probably to prepare the move knight b6. Now, you might ask, why didn't Ivanchuk play knight b6 immediately if he wants to play that? Well, let's have a look. After knight b6, they could have followed an exchange on b6. Queen takes b6, bishop takes b6, and rook takes d6. And since the queens have come off, Ivanchuk no longer has a serious chance of mating white's king on his weak queen side. Also, white has regained a pawn on d6, and most of the advantage has disappeared now. I suppose the position is equal, because although white is a pawn up, his queenside pawns are so weak that black has enough counterplay. So this explains why after bishop e3, Ivanchuk chose to play the mysterious queen b8, because this still keeps an eye on the d6 square, and now prepares to play knight b6 and then recapture with the bishop on b6. Okay. Cheparinov continued with his plan. He played rook h3. And now the aforementioned knight b6 was played. But here I think comes the first major mistake of this game. It would have been best for Cheparinov to exchange on b6, and then after the probably planned bishop takes b6, then white would have an advantage after the very strong queen h4. This attacks h7, and black's only decent reply is h6, but then after g takes h6, bishop d8, and queen f4, it's quite clear that white has a very good game, because he's breaking through more or less on black's king side. So instead of that black is attacking white's king, white is now also very seriously attacking black's king. So if this is so, then after knight b6, probably Ivanchuk had misjudged that the exchange on b6 would be in black's favor after taking on b6 with the bishop. So in that case he would have to play queen b6, but then of course we get a similar position as we saw earlier after the exchange of queens. Again there is a move like rook d6, or maybe even stronger, something like f3, f4, to make this rook participate on the third rank, and again positions are now completely equal. So this explains why I think that Ivanchuk played less accurate moves after he had gained this serious advantage on the queen side. But let's return to the game. Ivanchuk played knight b6, and Cheparinov did not exchange on b6, but he continued with his faulty plan of attacking on the king side. He played queen h4. Now why is it faulty, you might ask? Well, the reason is that black has a very simple defense, and it is h7, h6. We saw this defense in the previous variation, but the big difference now is that white cannot take on h6 because the g-pawn is pinned by the bishop on d8, which would be on d6 had white exchanged on b6 first. So Ivanchuk played h6 in the game, and then probably most tenacious would have been still again the exchange on b6, queen takes b6, and now f3, f4, also to try and make this rook on h3 participate in the defense over the third rank. But after h6, Cheparinov made another mistake. He played queen g3. Okay, this is unpinning the pawn on g5, and white now wants to take on h6. But taking on h6 is never really a big threat, because if he were to play h6, then black, if nothing else, could always try and answer g7, g6. Okay. But Ivanchuk felt that it is not necessary to do anything on the king side now, and he takes on a4, and it is this pesky knight that is really going to be a source of a lot of trouble for the white king on b1, and therefore it would have been better to exchange it when white still had the chance. Now Cheparinov played rook d6, and there followed h takes g5 and bishop d3. Now Cheparinov has something up his sleeve, something interesting, but this move, bishop d3, allows for a decisive attack on the white king. However, had he played, for instance, rook d8, that would have been positional resignation. And why would he have tried to play rook d8? Well, since after bishop d3, this bishop on d8 can now come to the long diagonal in a very strong manner. Bishop f6. Also, by the way, knight c3 would have been very strong. Now Cheparinov tries to block out this bishop, but it doesn't really help. He plays e5. Black simply takes, and now he plays rook h8. This reminds us of the famous game O against Geller from the Zurich International Chess Tournament in 1953. And yeah, this was the idea that he had in mind when he played bishop d3, no doubt. However, he might have put his hopes on this idea, but the tactics just simply worked in black's favor. Queen takes h8, that's forced of course. Queen h3 check. King g8 also forced. Queen h7 check. King f8, and now it is almost mate, but black still has this fleeing square on e7. And that is why Cheparinov now plays rook d7. But it is all too little, too late, because now it is black's turn to deliver a few final blows. Knight c3 check. King a1 was played. If king b2, then black would defend against the mate himself by means of king e8, which would attack the rook and still maintain all kinds of threats against white's king, not to mention the fact that black is simply a rook up. So let's return to the game. King a1 was played, and after knight b5 discovered check, Cheparinov resigned. Now there could have followed something like king b1, which leads to a very well-known mating pattern. Knight a3 is mate. Or, after knight b5 discovered check, bishop d4 to interpose. Bishop d4, and now white has to give up his rook also. And after knight takes d4, black is simply up 2 rooks and is completely winning. Okay, well, this concludes our report on this game. It was a game from the final round of the M-Tel Masters Chess Tournament, and Vasily Ivanchuk managed to win this tournament in a very impressive manner. He scored 8 out of 10 points. I thank you for your attention, and until next time. Bye.